faithfully delivering value, interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally's Book Club. Today we'll be discussing the book The Rational Optimist. Its subtitle is How Prosperity Evolves, an eye-opening economics read. Every era echoes with pessimistic narratives. These viewpoints resurface every decade over the past 50 years. The 60s saw population explosion and global famine, 70s resource depletion, 80s acid rain, 90s pandemics, and now global warming. Ultimately, all these arguments reach the same conclusion. Oh dear, if this continues, humanity's golden age is ending. But is that really true? Today's book, The Rational Optimist, gives us a definitive answer. Author Matt Ridley, an Oxford PhD, spent 8 years at The Economist as editor-journalist and is a globally celebrated best-selling writer. The seminal work receives universal acclaim from thinkers worldwide. His core thesis: today's world surpasses any previous era with even brighter days ahead. Thus, we should maintain rational optimism. So, how did the author arrive at this conclusion? Unpack the book's essence through 3 key questions. First, what ignited and sustains human prosperity? Second, why do pessimists persist and why do their solutions fail? Third, how do rational optimists approach problem solving? Let's begin with the first question. What sparked human prosperity? Some constantly lament modern life, convinced progress breeds wars, terrorism, economic crises, and inequality. They yearn for that simple, idyllic 19th century pastoral life. Picture this: father reading the Bible by the hearth, mother drawing water from a clay pot, a baby cooing in bed. Such tranquil perfection. But reality paints a different picture. Father reads by smoky firelight because candles cost too much, inhaling fumes that'll give him chronic bronchitis. Mother's water reeks of livestock since animals share the stream, while the wailing baby has smallpox and won't survive. After hearing this, do you still want to return to the past? Well, probably not, though modern society still has flaws. It's undoubtedly more prosperous than the 19th century. Statistics show that, compared to the early 1800s, global life expectancy has doubled, while real income has increased ninefold. In the 19th century, one had to work 6 hours straight to afford 1 hour of electricity. But today, for that same hour of electricity, you need to work less than half a second, an improvement of over 40,000 times. So what brought this prosperity? Tracing economic progress history, the author found a starting point: the simple act of exchange, a concept often confused with reciprocity. Reciprocity means giving similar things to each other at different times. Like two monkeys. You scratch my back today, I'll scratch yours tomorrow. I stand guard this time, you next time. That's reciprocity. Exchange means giving different things simultaneously. For instance, I make clothes while you gather food, then we trade. No, animals show reciprocity, but exchange is uniquely human. As Adam Smith observed, no one's seen dogs deliberately exchange bones fairly. But throughout history, every known tribe practiced exchange. The author cites 2 examples supporting this. First, Darwin's case. In 1834, Darwin encountered isolated natives on Tierra del Fuego. He noted in his journal, they clearly understood barter. When Darwin gave them a nail without expecting return, they immediately speared 2 fish and offered them back. Modern and primitive humans thus understood transactions without shared language. Contrastingly, zoologists observe no such exchange in animals. The second example, a zoologist raising a baby gorilla with his daughter. Notice the gorilla never exchanged food, while his daughter generously shared, showing humans' innate exchange impulse from early childhood.
hmm
And next, let's see how a simple act like exchange has propelled humanity to today's prosperity. Exchange comes in 2 types. The first is barter, which sparks social division of labor and trade, the primary driver of human prosperity. Specialization from division of labor boosts production efficiency and cuts average work time. Let's give an example. Two primitive people living off fishing and gathering wild fruits. Eve is skilled at fishing. Adam gathers fruits quicker. If Eve and Adam each fish and gather themselves, both waste time on things they're bad at. If they cooperate, one specializes in fishing, the other in gathering, then they swap. This way, each can focus more time and energy on their strengths. The fisher can hone their skills to catch fish faster and better, while the gatherer becomes more efficient. Even if you're not great compared to others, relative to yourself, there's always something you're better at. In that case, division of labor is still the smartest choice. Hmm, let's give another example. Suppose Eve is handy. She catches a fish in 1 hour, gathers fruits in two. Adam, though, is clumsy. Fishing takes 4 hours, gathering three. He's worse than Eve at both, but relatively faster at gathering. If both are self-sufficient, Eve works 3 hours to get fish and fruits. Adam works 7 hours. If they specialize in trade, Eve catches two fish, trades one for a bag of fruits with Adam, so she only works 2 hours. Meanwhile, Adam gathers two fruit bags, trades one for a fish from Eve, so he only works 6 hours. Both eat fish and fruits, saving an hour through division of labor. All right, let's look at trade next. Trade's biggest perk is letting us enjoy others' resources and labor. For instance, this morning you had breakfast. The bread was baked from wheat sourced in France. Butter came from New Zealand pastures, jam from Portugal, tea from Sri Lanka, and your clothes are from Indian cotton and Australian wool. The shoes on your feet use Spanish calf leather and Malaysian rubber, while your phone's composition is even more complex. It combines the wisdom and sweat of American software engineers, European designers, Chilean copper miners, Arab oil workers, and Chinese electronic component assemblers. Thanks to trade, you living in a modern city can access products and services from dozens of countries, consuming the labor of thousands. Meanwhile, a rural woman in a remote African nation spends 35% of her day farming food, 17% fetching water, while watching for crocodiles in the river. All right, that covers barter. It sparks social division of labor and trade, boosting productivity and letting us enjoy others' resources and work. Next comes the second exchange type, knowledge sharing. Like candlelight, where others gain illumination without dimming your flame. When I share knowledge with you, it benefits you, yet I lose nothing in the process. In economics, this is called the spillover effect. Knowledge spillover brings several advantages. First, useful knowledge never gets forgotten. It's stored in humanity's ever-expanding collective brain. Animals preserve knowledge genetically, like thrushes building mud nests, robins using hair, finches feathers, but humans differ. Though breathing, laughing, chewing come from genes, extra genetic knowledge is preserved through exchange in our collective brain. Knowledge like fire making or wheel crafting, these aren't innate, but once invented, they're never lost because useful knowledge via spillover gets exchanged and enters humanity's collective brain. If wheels prove useful, masters teach 500 apprentices. Dispersed storage greatly enhances security. When the wheel's inventor dies, the technology survives. Since useful knowledge persists, its accumulation continuously expands and enriches humanity's collective brain over time. Thus, Newton said, "He stood on giants' shoulders." This is knowledge spillover's gift. Second benefit, when knowledge meets, merges, and cross-pollinates, it creates 1 plus 1 greater than 2 innovations. A summer, almost all innovations are hybrids. Phones mating with computers birthed the internet. The first automobile looked like a bicycle frame hitched to a horse carriage. Add a steam engine, and you got a monster. Medical microcameras emerged when gastroenterologists chatted with missile designers. Innovation isn't simple addition, it's explosive multiplication. Today, with rapid advances in transport and communication, knowledge exchange accelerates. Future tech innovation will be even faster. Now we see Knowledge exchange forms our collective brain, enabling explosive innovation. What direct benefit does this bring humanity? It lets us enjoy others' inventions. As Jobs said, we eat others' grown food, wear others' made clothes, use others' invented language and products. Our math theories, Bell's phone, Edison's bulb, Tesla's AC, Faraday's generator, von Neumann's computer, Berners-Lee's web, countless innovations, living or dead, all serve you today. Humanity's second engine, innovation, explained. Knowledge exchange builds our collective brain, preserves useful knowledge, and generates new ideas through collision, letting all enjoy others' inventions. Summarizing question 1, human prosperity began with exchange, powered by two forces: barter-driven division of labor and trade, and knowledge exchange-driven innovation. But here comes our turning point. If we live in a world of thriving trade and endless innovation, why do so many feel pessimistic about the future? This leads to our second question. Why do pessimists keep emerging? Why do their solutions fail? First, why do pessimists proliferate? 3 reasons. First reason, pessimism genes are more common than optimism genes. This makes perfect sense. Over millions of years, disasters like floods, volcanoes, earthquakes, and wild beasts could have wiped out humanity. Only highly alert, primitive humans survived to pass down their genes. We're descendants of those pessimists. So modern folks are more sensitive to bad news and easily influenced. Second reason, loss aversion. Psychology makes bad news more attention-grabbing. Loss aversion means the pain of losing something outweighs the joy of gaining it. For example, losing money hurts deeply, but winning some doesn't bring expected happiness. Thus, pessimistically framed news leaves stronger impressions than optimistic takes. This leads to good news isn't news, bad news grabs attention. Charities, if conditions improve, struggle to raise funds. Journalists writing about global prosperity without dangers won't make headlines. Another book example, 10 stable temperature years amid climate concerns should be good news. But see how the New York Times reported it. They said slowed warming makes consensus environmental solutions harder. Thus, even good news becomes bad news. True, some doomsayers seek fame or attention, but others aren't fame seekers. Some are respected public figures, like the 18th century prediction that London streets would drown under 10 feet of horse manure. IBM's founder predicted in 1943 that the world would need just 5 computers. Environmentalist Brown predicted in 2008 that China would deplete global forests. These weren't stupid or self-serving people. Why such wrong, pessimistic judgments? This leads to the third reason, anchoring bias, where past information limits judgment like an anchor, making past-based thinking inadequate for future problems. Those predicting London buried in horse manure never imagined the Industrial Revolution would replace horses with cars. When IBM's founder predicted only 5 computers worldwide, each machine filled entire rooms. The environmentalist fearing China would deplete forests with paper consumption, his math wasn't wrong. But with paperless offices and e-books, information moved to digital devices, drastically reducing paper use, right? To summarize, pessimism dominates for 3 reasons. First, biological prevalence of pessimism genes. The latter 2 are psychological, loss aversion and anchoring bias. Having covered why pessimists emerge, what solutions do they propose? Essentially 2 answers. First, halt development immediately. Population explosion, have fewer kids. Global famine, eat less. Resource depletion, consume less. Some argue if every Chinese owned a car, all global rice fields would become roads and parking lots, thus claiming global oil can't sustain China, so restrict its growth. Absurd, because development is unstoppable, as is humanity's pursuit of better lives. Market economies run on capital, whose nature is expansion, making halted growth nearly impossible. Even if achieved, factories stopped, technology abandoned, global economy shrunk, it would happen. The author projects the worst outcome, reverting to human enslavement. Why? Consider humanity's journey. Originally, all work required human labor. Then slavery emerged. A few gained leisure while most toiled exhaustingly. Fossil fuels sparked the Industrial Revolution. Machines outperformed humans, making slavery economically inefficient. Thus, capitalism abolished slavery. Today, without fossil fuels, maintaining your lifestyle would require about 150 slaves, according to the author's calculation. And with 8-hour shifts, less than 1% could maintain current lifestyles. The rest would become impoverished slaves. If development truly stopped, might history reverse? Could slavery return? Pessimist's second solution: find alternatives. Replace polluting fossil fuels with clean energy, non renewable sources with renewables. This sounds more feasible, but deeper analysis reveals problems. Clean energy isn't actually clean. The author gives an example. Biofuels from corn or sugarcane are called clean, but each acre requires massive fertilizer and pesticides. Transportation also requires tractors, meaning producing this clean energy already consumes vast unclean energy. Beyond biofuels, you might consider geothermal, tidal, wind, or solar alternatives. But their problem is inefficiency, like occupying enormous land areas. If Britain used only alternatives, 10% of its land would be wind turbines, with 25 times more river dams. Britain would need solar panels covering an area equivalent to Spain. Thus, currently, there's no ideal fossil fuel substitute, since halting development and finding alternatives both fail. Pessimist solutions aren't humanity's path forward. So, how should we confront the future? This brings us to the book's final section. How do rational optimists solve resource or environmental issues and poverty? First, tackling resource and environmental problems. Why group these two? Because both stem from fossil fuels. Resource scarcity fears depletion, while environmental pollution fears damage to nature. For both, rational optimists propose continued development, letting innovation provide solutions. In short, continuously advance technology, leaving future challenges to future humans who will solve them with future innovations. With humanity's collective accumulation, future generations will be wiser than us, just as we're wiser than our ancestors. We once feared global famine, but solved food shortages not through rationing or farmland expansion, but via artificial nitrogen fixation, crossbreeding tech, and mechanized farming. Today, one combine harvester operator can harvest enough wheat daily for 500,000 loaves of bread. Similarly, today's resource and environmental issues will surely be solved by future science, because resources aren't physical objects, they're knowledge. If you brought coal to ancient Rome, they wouldn't see it as fuel, they'd treat it as shiny black gemstone jewelry. Same coal, in ancient Rome it wasn't a resource, but today it is, because now we possess the knowledge to utilize coal. If you traveled to pre-industrial Britain, wood was the resource. Every fire-using factory burned it. Yearly, ironworks and breweries cleared hundreds of acres of forest. They worried if national woodlands could meet demand. After the Industrial Revolution, did this problem persist? Of course not. We shifted to coal and oil, ending wood dependence. Forests ceased being energy resources. Thus, resources transform alongside human knowledge. When we fret over resource depletion today, is it merely because our knowledge remains insufficient? If safe, controlled nuclear fusion succeeds and scales, wouldn't resource and environmental crises vanish? Now another issue, poverty. Some say Asia's poverty reduction in recent decades is great, but what about Africa? The author believes solving African poverty requires bottom-up trade, not top-down government aid. Why is aid ineffective? A crucial reason is that aid can only address Africa's most basic needs, reducing hunger and sustaining life, but it can't jumpstart national economic growth. In the 1980s, aid to Africa equaled the continent's entire GDP, yet it caused economic growth to drop from 2% to 0. This shows that ongoing poverty relief actually worsens poverty. If economic development isn't fueled by aid money, what is it fueled by? The answer is trade. Africa has abundant agricultural and mineral resources. Why hasn't it prospered? Because trade faces restrictions. To start a business in Tanzania, it takes over a year just to get an operating license. Thus, 98% of businesses operate informally, but this means property rights aren't secure. Your venture could be forcibly seized anytime. In the end, nobody wants to do business anymore. If governments cut trade regulations and establish reliable property rights, these countries can tap resources to join global trade and profit. For instance, after Mali protected property rights and trade, they leveraged their strong musical heritage to sell local music copyrights worldwide, reaping big benefits. On the other hand, new tech also aids Africa's trade development. The author gives a brilliant example. After mobile phones spread in Africa, poor people's living conditions improved dramatically. Farmers can call different markets to ask for the best prices before selling their crops. And mobile phone credit has surprisingly become an informal currency in many nations. African merchants can pay bills, accept loans, and handle payments to the US across oceans using phone credit. Mobile and internet tech lowered barriers to global trade. In short, as long as local entrepreneurship flourishes and fully engages in global trade, Africa too can prosper. To summarize, rational optimists believe innovation and trade, those twin engines of prosperity, will keep running, solving issues like resources, environment, and poverty. With this, we've covered the essence of The Rational Optimist, a book that boosts our confidence in the future. As long as humanity doesn't close itself off, as long as trade and innovation keep working, the world has no reason to regress. Excessive pessimism about tomorrow is irrational. Humankind will have brighter days ahead. All right, that concludes our interpretation of The Rational Optimist. Reading notes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.